Good evening, folks. Once again, it's your boy Chicago, aka Tim, in the corner. Actually, I'm bringing you this video impromptu. This is a on-the-spot analysis of Trump. He just concluded what was about a 90-minute speech at CPAC, and I wanted to go ahead and do some analysis on that for you fine people, and I would love to hear your opinion on that. Start off by asking that you go ahead and subscribe if you like the channel. I've been dropping videos and I've been noticing you guys have been noticing me. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Like if you like. If you dislike, go ahead and hit the dislike button. Comment. And like I said, I would appreciate if you subscribed. It helped the channel out. We're going to do this different in regards to analyzing Trump at CPAC. I'm going to do positives and I'm going to do negatives. You guys already know I tend to lean left. So we do not want anyone just go, well, he's just biased, he's just gonna tear it apart. No, we're gonna do some equal positives, because there was a lot of positives in this 90-minute speech, and I think he hit some good points. And yeah, I would like to go ahead and talk about that. First of all, we will say that he came on stage and started out with the very, very popular "Do You Miss Me?" Drove the fans wild. It was energetic. I got chants of USA, USA. And then he went right on into a tribute to Rush Limbaugh, thanked him and his wife. I mean, I got my opinions on Rush Limbaugh, but for the sake of the CPAC speech, it was very positive, and it went off without a hitch. I mean, Limbaugh's wife was there, and let's just face it, Limbaugh has done a tremendous amount of good for the Republican Party. Now, follow that up with a negative. He basically went right on into saying in one short month, we went from America first to America last. That's just not possible. Biden has been in office since late January, and here we are in late February. There's no way you can go from the top to the bottom in 1 month. And if you think so, the question would be, well, what is America last in? When you think about things that you compare America to around the world, what are we last in that you would blame Biden for in the last month that we were actually first in before Biden took office? Nothing moves that fast. So that statement, I'm going to attribute it to being negative, because it's outrageous and it's false. You can say Biden is taking us in wrong directions and things like that, but to actually say we're at America last as soon as late February is outrageous. But like I said, if you disagree, tell me in the comments where you think America went from first to last in 1 month, and it's all Joe Biden's fault, or all the liberals' fault for doing this in just 1 month. I'd love to hear what you have to say. We go on to the next one, which I definitely think is a positive, but me leaning left, I'm going to see this as a positive, where it may not be as much a positive to those who lean right. And that is no name calling. Not once did we hear a Sleepy Joe, Nervous Nancy, or any of that stuff, Crazy Bernie. I mean, he gave a 90-minute speech without name calling. I mean, he threw some insults around, which is, par for the course for any politician. That's what you're supposed to do, is criticize your rival. I'm fine with that. But the personal attacks, there was virtually none of that in this speech. So that was a very controlled Trump for 90 minutes. Not one Sleepy Joe Biden. That's amazing. He mentioned Nancy Pelosi, but he didn't call her any, like I said, no nasty nicknames or anything like that. So that is absolutely a positive. On the negative side, just like with the America first to America last comment being outrageous, he also stated that Joe Biden is further left than he could have imagined. Left-wing radical, you're taking the country further left than he could ever imagine. That's also, I'm going to chalk up as being outrageous, because Trump had commercials that were saying if Biden got elected, they were going to remove police from the street. He's going to take everybody's guns away. He's going to turn America into Venezuela. He's going to raise taxes to 70%. Nothing he's done yet comes close to that. So, if you predict the guy's going to do all of that nasty stuff, how can you be at the point right now of saying he's further left than you ever could imagine? Clearly, based on your commercials and your campaign rallies, you imagined a really, really, really far left guy. And he hasn't even measured up to those standards yet. So why you be calling them further left than you ever could have imagined as soon as February, a little bit over a month in this term? That to me makes no sense. But once again, drop it in the comments and I will address your comments. We've even made videos in response to some comments, particularly in that B-list white Coca-Cola video. That's a different story though. But yeah, if you think that he has been further left than you originally imagined, and you also thought he was going to turn America into socialist Venezuela, I would love to know in the comments how you put those two together. On the positive side, Operation Warp Speed, definitely a positive. It put a lot of money in the right places. I mean, COVID obviously is a pandemic. Did a lot of damage, still doing a lot of damage, caused a lot of deaths, a lot of sickness, a lot of destruction to the economy, business, infrastructure, etc., etc. Operation Warp Speed opened the floodgates up for financial resources and things of that nature to get ventilators in the right place, to help turn factories and divert what they were originally producing to producing things that we needed to fight the pandemic. That happened under the Trump administration, and that is an absolute positive. Also, during the CPAC speech, he stated that he wants schools reopened. And I'm going to give that a positive because even some of the most far left individuals are now stating, far left medical professionals are now starting to state and admit that children are the least likely to contract the virus, and they're the least likely to perish from it. So taking children out of schools has been devastating for social interaction, development in areas, and any student that may have ADD or special certain disorders and things like that needs that teacher interaction as opposed to doing it online. So I'm absolutely going to chalk all of that up to being a positive from his speech at CPAC. Now, on the other side, he stated, and I'm going to read this one off, any other president would have taken 5 years or more to create a vaccine. And he did it in around 9 months. He's taking credit for that. I disagree with that because we're not the only country that has created a vaccine in that same time period. We can argue and say that Russia didn't do it right, but Russia has reportedly created a vaccine, and so did the UK. And I believe China even came up with something. So we're not the only one that done it in 9 months. So to say that he's the only American president that could have done it that fast, if they could do it in China, they can do it in Israel. But then Joe Biden or Barack Obama or George Bush or somebody could have done it too. Most likely, they would have also created some type of warp speed type program and diverted money, and that money would have went probably to the same entities, just the same entities in America that it went to under Trump. The CDC is the CDC, So I'm not going to say that he's the only one that could have done that. That's taking credit for something that you definitely deserve credit for it, but not to the point where saying that you're the only one that could have done that. And that's where I kind of disagree with that. Because Israel has vaccinated 50% of their country already. In fact, we're behind on a lot of countries. So you can give him credit, which I definitely give him credit for Operation Warp Speed. But obviously, there's going to be other things you're going to get pushback on. And one of those is the fact that he was caught on audio talking to Bob Woodward and admitting that he knew it was he was advised that it was an airborne illness and it could have a tremendous death rate. And according to Trump himself, he deliberately downplayed the virus to prevent America from going into widespread chaos. That right there, I'm going to attribute that to being a negative because you're lying to the American people and not giving them a chance to maybe take your advice. It's kind of like, I'm going to leave you in a theater that's on fire because I don't want to tell you that the place is burning down because you may create a stampede. Well, because you downplayed the fire, a lot of people burned up. So I'm not going to give them credit for deliberately lying about a very serious pandemic that 500,000 Americans so far have passed for. I can't blame him. I'm not going to blame him specifically for 500,000 deaths, But I am going to say that it happened mostly when he was in office, and he did lie about what the seriousness of what was, what was killing him. Because remember, he stated that the virus was probably going to be gone by Easter, when he clearly knew it was a serious pandemic in the works. I mean, if you're gonna lie, you can divert questions, not say things, but you don't tell people it's going to go away when they're telling you this is going to be really bad. There's no way I'm gonna attribute anything positive to doing that. Also, he pretty much engaged in hostile attacks with virtually everyone that did try to tell us this is a very serious issue. Everybody from Dr. Fauci to the CDC to a large portion of the medical community. In fact, the American Medical Association, and they were starting to write things speaking out against what he was doing. So, there's no way I'm going to give you any kind of positive credit for doing that. Not only did you lie, but then you actually attacked the medical professionals that tried to get the truth out. Like I said, and our death numbers on that is astounding at this point. So that's clearly a negative. Okay, now we'll move on. And here's one that is an absolute 2 thumbs up positive thing that I think came from Trump during the CPAC speech tonight. He stated that we are not going to divide the Republican Party. That would be dumb. He followed up by saying, I am not starting a new party. Anybody that tells you that, particularly the media, that is fake news. The Republican Party will remain united and stronger than ever. First of all, you don't hear Trump talk about unity very often. So that is, even from the left side, I like hearing the word unity, even if it's coming from somebody who's talking about uniting the right. But everything about that is good, because you think about Ross Perot, of the, 90s, I believe, or was the 80s he was around. He divided the party and cost, I believe it was George H.W. his second term. So there's never any benefit with a major party leader separating and creating his own party. Bernie Sanders could also be held accountable for that to some degree. He didn't divide the Democratic Party, but he divided the voters in the party to the point where you had, and still have, Bernie Sanders supporters that really despise Hillary Clinton, even though they're both Democrat. And that would happen if Trump divided the Republican Party. His Trump supporters would probably dislike the hell out of whoever was leading the Republican ticket. There's just nothing good about that for the Republican Party. So for him to say he's going to unite the party is absolutely a positive thing. I mean, and that could actually be something that may actually be enough to help them win in 2024 or even in 2022 with the midterm. So yeah, I can't take anything away from that. I'm going to briefly look down here and looking at the next one. He had an issue with, I'm going to go right into the no new wars thing. I'm looking at how I got notes on this. I'm looking at how I have them listed out. But one of the things, this is a positive. No new wars under his term. He truly did not get us involved in any new wars. And that's a serious breath of fresh air after 20 years in Iraq. Most people attribute that to George Bush, but Barack Obama didn't stop it. So, I mean, Barack Obama absolutely droned the hell out of people and was all over the Middle East. So there's no way you're going to pretend that Barack Obama was not responsible for getting us involved in some conflicts. Bill Clinton, all of them. I mean, they always doing it. So no new wars, no new conflicts under Trump is also a positive. That's a positive that the liberals have been wanting for a long time, and they're not giving them credit for it. Here's one that is. So I'm going to say that one right there. I'm going to give him credit for it. Now I'm going to switch right and transition right into a negative. You're hearing the right state that Biden has only been in office for a short time, and he's already had a small bombing campaign. I believe it was in Syria. I believe it was in that area. It was very low level, no casualties of any significance or anything like that, just to show Iranian-backed rebels that, we're not to be effed with, so to speak. Now, the Trump supporters are mentioning that, but they're ignoring the fact that early in Trump's term, He sent 50 tomahawks to Syria himself. So he did do that. He didn't send, any massive groups of troops anywhere like, say, Barack Obama or certainly not George W. Bush. But he did have a small bombing campaign as well. I don't know if you guys remember that. I believe it was in 2017. Yeah, and he sent 50 tomahawks over there. So you can't really hit Joe Biden for what he's done so far, because that 50 tomahawk mission actually did more destruction. I think they had like 6 casualties or something really minor, but it was bigger than what Joe Biden just did. So you can't bring up one if you're going to ignore the other one. Now let's go on over to one I will say I absolutely disagree, and I'll throw this in as a total negative. He's making it sound as though the military was dilapidated and falling apart under the previous administration, which would be Barack Obama. He came in and he strengthened our military and made them better. Compared to who? I mean, you take the U.S. military in 2008 at the end of Barack Obama's term, and you want to tell me that military was falling apart and dilapidated? Compared to who else on earth was that military dilapidated and falling apart for? I mean, if our military is 3 times as strong as anybody else's, and all of a sudden it's 2 times as strong as anybody else's, it's still sufficient enough to get the job done. So not to mention we were still involved in a lot of overseas conflicts. So I just don't get, or do not get, where the military being dilapidated and falling apart under Barack Obama comes. That also makes no sense. The F-35 program was in full swing. They're still pumping out ships and everything under Obama. So that one right there, just once again taking credit and throwing out wild statements that I just do not think they have a lot of validity behind. Now we'll go straight on into immigration. Here's a positive, and this is a positive once again that most liberals will not admit, but here's a liberal right here on camera admitting it. The wall was beneficial when it kept our borders safe. We can debate how much the wall helped keeping illegal immigrants out. We can debate if, whatever numbers you want to throw. But the fact of the matter is it definitely made a difference. And I say that because I actually personally went down on the border and talked to, 5 or 6 ICE individuals. And they were all of Hispanic descent. But I talked to them actually on the Rio Grande. Candidly, they wouldn't let me film them or anything, but I talked to them and they all admitted the wall was absolutely necessary. It wasn't completed by any means at that point. This was about 3 years ago, but they stated that the areas where it was up under Trump was already making a big difference in individuals crossing over. So when he say the wall was beneficial and kept our borders safe, to some degree, that's absolutely true. I mean, it's, a wall is going to prohibit some people from crossing. There's no doubt about that. The only debate is, well, did it drop it 10% or did it drop it 80%? We can tweak all those numbers and, play politics and make it sound better for whoever wants to talk about it. But the fact is, the wall was helping keep the numbers down. And that's in addition to all types of legislation and things like that he was passing to assist the wall. For instance, you couldn't apply for asylum in America no more, and separating families at the border is another one we can talk about. I will say also, just to keep going along in the sense of him being on the positive side, he kept out the rhetoric about rapists and murderers. He brought up MS-13 and talked about how dangerous they are. I'm going to attribute that to a positive, because MS-13 is a very, very dangerous gang organization. I mean, it's pretty much just the cartel light, like cartel light. So I'm not gonna have anything negative to say about him mentioning the wall, mentioning MS-13, because now the rapist and murderer thing, I'm not a fan of, but there is a lot of MS-13 members that come across. So I'm gonna certainly give him that. Now, he also said Joe Biden's policy, since he's been in office now, has people rushing to the border to get into America. I'm gonna stay with that being positive, because that is true. That is absolutely true. The ones who want to get in America, whether it's legal or illegal, they all know that Joe Biden is going to be a lot less harsh on them. He's already made it clear he's going to stop all of the separation at the borders, and he's going to allow you to apply for asylum in the country. He's going to increase the amount of numbers of those who can come here. So everything about that is true. It's all of that is positive on the Trump side. And that is assuming you are for only legal immigration and you are against illegal immigration, which I think most Americans should not favor people coming here illegally. Now, from the left, we want more people to be able to come in the country, but legally. We just want the legislation that allows them to come here legally to be relaxed, which Joe Biden is doing. Now, that is a positive for us. You got the right don't want that. I'm gonna say you guys, but who knows who's watching the video. But I'm going to just say that in regards to the things that Trump said that I just stated in regards to immigration, all of that I believe is a positive for him. Certainly a positive at that CPAC crowd, and I believe that it is, for the most part, true. So I don't have a lot of negative things to say in regards to what he said on immigration. I'll just say it's just the politics of it. And what I mean by the politics of it is that traditionally, before Trump, both sides have been for illegal immigration. And what I mean by that is Democrats, liberals, left-wingers favor immigrants coming over here because they ultimately turn into votes. Once they get over here and they become legalized citizens, say you come over here illegally, you're fighting for asylum and you marry an American or you impregnate an American or whatever. Anything you leave in this country that becomes a citizen has a much higher chance of voting for the left. So illegal immigrants do turn into votes for the left. And that is why the left side favors illegal immigration and is far less harsh on it. Traditionally, the right has been in favor of it too, not for votes, but for reduced labor, reduced price labor. They clearly are willing to work for cheaper, work under the table, and the right is in favor of big business, these hotel outfits, these factories, landscaping companies, all of this stuff. Even some pretty big companies like Tyson Foods and things like that are notorious for hiring illegal immigrants. And, the right wing tends to support big business. So it's not that only the left has been in favor of illegal immigration. Trump is a different animal because he's saying things that both sides has not been in favor of, which is why you often hear people say, well, they only hate him because he goes against the elite and he's new. This is an area where that's true. Okay, so we will move on away from immigration. We're going to go into free speech. As of, I guess, early January, probably right after the insurrection on the Capitol building, when Trump lost his Twitter account, it became a big issue on the right that corporations, media, big tech was banning the free speech rights of the conservatives, of the right wing, of the Republicans. And you're still hearing that, and he brought this up at the CPAC speech. Once again, that is true. Republicans are being censored for saying a lot of things. So I'm going to attribute that to the positive side, but I'm going to immediately transition into the negative side because there is a flip side of that. And what I mean by that is Colin Kaepernick, flag burners, all of that, Coca-Cola Be Less White, which I made a video about, and it got a few negative comments on me. In fact, I got quite a bit, but the Be Less White, you want to boycott Coca-Cola. You can't say you're in favor of free speech, but then say someone like Colin Kaepernick, Trump himself said, get that son of a bitch off the field at one of his rallies last year or the year before last. Well, taking a knee during the anthem is free speech. You may not like it. You may not be a fan of it. You may think it's disrespecting the flag, disrespecting the country, disrespecting the military. Whatever you think of it, it is covered by free speech. It's a right you have. Same thing with flag burning or doing whatever you want to do with the American flag in protest. All of that is free speech. So if you're in favor of opening up Trump's free speech rights, but you want Colin Kaepernick to be silenced, then you're not truly for free speech. You're for free speech that you agree with. So like I said, I'm going to give one a positive, I'm going to give one a negative, because Trump led the way on suggesting we ban Colin Kaepernick's free speech. Get that son of a bitch off the field. And it wasn't because of his play on the field. It was because of he didn't like what Colin Kaepernick was doing and taking a knee. And he's, like I said, he's an individual that's complaining that his free speech rights are being violated. So that's a positive and a negative. Go right on into LGBTQIA. He mentioned women's sports are being ruined. And he actually made kind of a comical reference about certain records that have been set by women in women's sports, and all of a sudden, you're going to have guys coming along that are women, transgender. What he's talking about is transgender students. So all of a sudden the record is broke. All of a sudden the weightlifting. I believe he used a term where he used an example where a weightlifting record was broke by 100 pounds. So, he's basically saying that, this person that was born a male that is now representing themselves as a female is on some sort of weightlifting team in high school, and all of a sudden he's lifting, because it would be a she, change of pronouns, she can lift 100 pounds more than any other student in history. I'm going to give that a positive, because if they do allow transgender students to play sports for the gender that they identify with, that is exactly what would happen. I mean, and it would also happen in reverse. If you have a female that was, a person that was born female, and now they're identifying as a male, and they're trying to play on boys, boy teams, boy wrestling teams and things like that, they're going to do dismally. I mean, that's just the way it is. We are biologically designed so that one sex, bigger lungs, bigger bone structure, more muscle definition, more testosterone. You can't change that with a sex operation or by putting on a dress or by putting on a pair of pants. There's no other way to look at it. I know how it's going to be viewed. Even the liberals that watch this video may not like what I just said, but it is absolutely true. So I'm not going to take away from Trump for what he just said about that. The negative I will give in regards to this same subject, it's very rare. Now, will it catch on? I don't know, but right now it's very rare to hear of a school where there is someone who identifies as the opposite sex of what they were born as, and they're trying to play sports. So it's rare, and I think that making a big deal of something that's rare can create unnecessary hatred. If it grows, then that comment would no longer be considered negative. But right now, I believe that it is way too rare to be getting the amount of hatred or getting the amount of outrage that it's getting. It's kind of like when they originally said if you allow a man to marry another man, before you know it, people are going to want to marry their dogs and their cows and all of that. That may happen in the future, but it hasn't happened now. And when they were saying that, it made it so that homosexual relationships were being hated because they thought it could be taken to this crazy level. Well, that's happening now when it comes to LGBTQIA individuals, with the idea that they may one day want to play sports. If like I said, if it takes off and it starts happening more often, I would totally understand. But right now, that's way too rare to be coming up at CPAC meetings and rallies in front of thousands of people on worldwide TV. It's just not happening at that level. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. This is just a statement that Trump said, or stated rather. Democrats have bad policies like defund the police. Now, that statement is a crowd pleaser. I'm going to attribute it as being positive only because there is a hint of truth in it. I believe Minnesota is an area where they actually did pass legislation to defund the police. Now, when I say defund the police, I mean they're not funding certain aspects of the police department. It's not you just have an area of the country where there is absolutely no policing and it's just, like the Wild Wild West, which is kind of what a lot of right-wingers make it sound like. That's never been the issue. The issue might be where you have a small department and they all want to get a second set of, AR-15s for every officer. And you're looking like, well, the crime in this area is not anywhere near enough to justify needing 2 AR-15s per officer. So we're going to defund that particular, area of that police department and attribute that money to mental health care or rape counselors for the police department, something like that's what defund the police is. But they've kind of made it to the point where you find somebody who is really, really angry at police. You get them on TV and they'll say something like, "I don't think we should have any police because the cops are so bad," and they use that individual's quote. And that's what defund the police becomes, is we want America to be ran without any law enforcement at all. No liberal of any seriousness is promoting that. And Joe Biden actually stated that he's not even in favor of defunding the police at all. And he's the president. So liberals defunding the police is actually a lie. But I'm going to give it some credit because it has happened on very small levels. Not to mention Chaz or whatever that was in Seattle, where they took over a small area of town, like 6 blocks. They didn't defund the police. They just kind of told the police to stand down. So there is a reason to bring up defund the police. After that, I will go in. The only negative I would say in regards to that statement is that virtually nobody is doing that. Just similar to the LGBTQ statement about transgender, we're making a huge fuss over something that's virtually not happening. I mean, there's some pretty rough areas, Chicago, which is where I grew up. I mean, you think Memphis, St. Louis, New Orleans, all of these towns have police forces, big police forces, and nobody's talking about getting rid of them. So the liberals want to defund the police is just not true. And most of these big urban areas have liberal mayors and liberal councilmen and liberal governors, and liberal councilmen, well, even in some cases governors, but they're not talking about getting rid of police. So that's just not true. Last one is, this is kind of the last one I will attribute it to being positive. Trump stated that his endorsement, like if he endorses a politician, a senator, governor, congressional person, his endorsement is one of the most powerful ones in politics. And he said that his record in the Senate for his endorsements, the people he endorsed, was 21-0. So everybody he endorsed in the Senate races won. Now, I question that because Georgia lost 2 races. They lost 2 senators down in Georgia, and I believe he endorsed both of them. He fell out with them later on because they were not a fan of saying that the election was stolen, but I believe he did endorse both of those senators down in Georgia as well that lost. So I don't know if it's 21-0, but at the CPAC meeting he had this evening, the CPAC speech he gave this evening, he said he's 21-0. And he also stated that with him at the top of the ticket, the Republicans have done better than ever before. And he ended it by saying, thanks to him, the Dems failed to flip a single seat in state legislation. And that's true. I mean, they gained seats in Congress, which they were not expected to do. And they held on, I won't say they held on to the Senate, but they made it so it's a 50-50 split. They were expected to do worse than that. So that statement is true, but it leads into a very easy transition because he also made a lot of he spoke probably 10 minutes on how the election was stolen. I'm going to attribute all of that to being negative because there is absolutely no proof. There's been 60 court cases, et cetera, saying that there is no basis for him to say the election was stolen. But I'm not going to go too deep in it. I'm just going to simply say this. If the election was stolen, why are the Senate and congressional seats that you're taking credit for, maintaining and acquiring, why are those seats not fraudulent as well? And what I mean by that is a lot of times, I won't say most, but probably most of the time when we go and vote in a presidential election, if you're a Republican, you tend to vote for most of the Republican things on that ticket as well. The senator that's running, if the congressional seat, if it's up for grabs, various bills that are being passed that are you tend to vote right on. You're going to vote right for judges. Sometimes you can just check a Republican or a liberal or a Democratic box, and you can actually vote all Republican on that ticket or all Democrat on that ticket. So if these are fraudulent ballots, that means everything that person voted for was fraudulent. So you can't say that the Democrats or certain states like Michigan and Arizona had thousands of ballots that shouldn't have been cast, or that were fraudulent, or people were voting that are dead. But then you're taking credit for the victories you got in those states, because even though he lost states for himself, that the Senate won and maintained, or Congress won and maintained. So if Arizona, for instance, ran a fraudulent election, that means you got to also talk about the senators that's in that state. I mean, you got to talk about the Congress people in that state. All of the Republicans that won those seats, you're okay with that. It's just you. So that's a big if or question I've asked several people who claim the election was stolen. They don't have a decent answer for that. How the election could be stolen from him, but the other people that they voted for on that ticket are legitimate. And that's also probably why you didn't hear a lot of senators that won saying anything about the election being stolen. Because if you truly give Trump his way, that means all their elections got to be reevaluated as well. You can't just do a recount or do a revote, and it only pertains to the president when all these other people are on the ticket. You would cost all of them a second chance at losing as well. So I would definitely say that is very negative, that he's taking credit for flipping Senate and congressional seats while saying the election was stolen from him, and it's all coming from the same ballot. Definitely post a comment or let me know how you think that's possible. If you believe the election was stolen, but you believe the Senate and congressional seats are valid, that the Republicans won, I would love to hear you explain that to me. And that may be something we can talk about or address in a future video. So I'm going to end it right here. This is based on what he said at the CPAC. This is a fairly lengthy video on a 90-minute speech. I gave a 30-minute myself. Love to hear what you think. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. You can tell me where I went wrong. It's a pleasure talking to you guys. A lot of my audience is right-wing. I'm getting some left-wingers in there, but right now it's mostly right-wingers. So I'm going to get a lot of things wrong because I tend to lean left. Talk to you later.